do. But what I want to talk about today is this idea of emotional regulation. So we ended the last video with a few tips, and I always put helpful tips or a verse or something at the end of each of the videos in this series. So make sure that you catch that at the end. We talked at the end about freeze, fight, and flight. And these are responses that our body can have when we are dysregulated. Our body, our brain, body, soul, and spirit is designed to regulate. What that means is to not be anxious and kind of all over the place, and not be so low and depressed that we can't move or do things, but to be regulated, to kind of be in this middle zone where we can breathe. When we're regulated, our brain is functioning out of the prefrontal cortex. We're functioning out the reasoning centers of our brain. When we get dysregulated, too high or too low in our nervous system and our body, we have difficulty connecting with our reasoning centers. We are less like ourselves when we're in that state of mind. And so we can become difficult to get along with as a parent, as a person, as a child. We are reacting in this, our bodies are reacting in this way to try to regulate. Like, I need to get back to the safe zone where I feel okay in the middle. So this is the concept that I want to talk to you about. And we're not going to go into depth. If you want depth, get the book, because Stephanie does a great job of kind of pulling out the neuroscience and a lot of the concepts behind that. What I want to talk to you about is, as a parent and a caregiver, it's important that when you approach your child, your teenager that is in this place, they're dysregulated. Maybe they've just experienced trauma, or maybe they are having one of those fight, flight, freeze responses that we talked about at the end of the last video. As a parent, we need to help them get back into that regulated state where they can really be more like their true selves, and think clearly and process and reason. If we try to reason with them or talk to them and they are dysregulated up in that zone, anxious, or just low and shut down here, we are not going to be able to have a super productive conversation with them. And that's where those lack skills come in that we talk about. That helps them get regulated in this middle zone. But the problem that I see more often than not is the parent having difficulty regulating. The parent, the caregiver, going into a situation feeling anxious or frustrated because this is not how this is supposed to look, or just feeling so shut down and discouraged and depleted. And anytime that we try to engage with our kids and we're not in that emotionally regulated zone here in the middle, it's going to be hard because we're not thinking with our reasoning center in our brain. We are not our best selves in that moment. This is one reason why it's really important that we don't just hear a problem, get a note from school, see our child acting out, hear about some horrible bullying that happened at school, or an abuse situation that happened, and just launch into tackling the problem. Because when we do that, it's not going to work for the best that it could. So let's talk about how we regulate. Regulate means coming down from the high, anxious, maybe angry, feeling a little out of control spot, or coming out of this low, kind of depressed, shut down zone down here and getting into a regulated zone. I know it sounds crazy. I don't even like to talk about it because it's so cliche and seems oversimplified, but I'm telling you, it is so effective. You ready? Some of you already know what I'm going to say. Breathe. We got to breathe. When we get dysregulated, any person, this is how our body works. When we get dysregulated, our body, our nervous system feels that. It sends signals to our brain that says danger, danger, and our breathing pattern changes. We may find ourselves holding our breath. We may find ourselves just deep breathing and fast breathing, kind of panting. When you get really anxious, that is a common breathing pattern. And that breathing pattern continues to send the signal to your body that says you're not safe. And when you're not safe, you're not going to be in your slow, peaceful reasoning place in your brain, but you're going to be in fight, flight, or freeze. You are going to be trying to make sense of the situation and get your body back to normal. And to do that, we have to get out of whatever that perceived danger is that we feel as adults. Breathing, deep breath from down in your gut, feeling your gut, breathing from deep within, letting out that breath. That sends signals to your nervous system that you're okay, that there is not a lion chasing you, that there is not imminent danger in your space with you. Sometimes it helps to even look around the room and say, okay, am I at my home? Am I at a place that's safe? Is there a violent person here? Am I okay? Okay, I'm going to send the signal to my body and to my brain that I'm okay. And that will sometimes be enough to help you get back into that regulated zone where it's not the emotions that are driving you and that fight or flight that's driving you. Sometimes breathing isn't enough. Sometimes we need to take a moment. We need to invite the Lord into that place. We should always do that, of course, but He designed our body to respond to breathing. So it's good to try that too. We can just, God, be here with me. Just regulate me. Help me to be filled with your spirit. Help me to have your words. Give me your thoughts, Father God. Calm my body. Calm my mind. Silence those voices not of you. We're going to talk about that prayer when we get to day 1 in the guide. Help me to align with you, Father God, to be in alignment with your peace, peace that surpasses all understanding. I love that verse because when we look at the second half of that, surpasses all understanding, what that means is God gives us peace that makes no sense. We should not have peace in this situation. We should not feel peace when we just find out about some horrible thing that happened to our child, or feel peace when we have to go to another parent teacher meeting and we know it's not going to be good, or feel peace when you know that your child is locked in their room and they're so disconnected from you that you can't help them and you don't know what they're thinking or doing. Those are moments where peace surpasses all understanding. It makes no sense. God can give us peace in those moments. And it may sound contrary because you may even hear that list of things and say, peace, those are not peaceful times. Those are war times. Those are danger times. The reality is, when we are at peace, we can be ourselves. We can have access to the part of our brain that is reasoning and problem solving. We're going to be a healthier parent or caregiver for our child. We are going to be able to step in and provide solutions and provide relational connection that makes sense in the moment. And I think that's one of the reasons that God gives us peace in situations that don't seem like peace is very helpful, because peace is actually a very neurological thing. So we want to regulate, get to that place where we're breathing regularly, where we don't feel our mind racing quite as much, where we don't feel that hopelessness and despair quite as much. And in that moment, we want to go in and help our child. So we have self regulated. We want to help our child by co regulating, because kids do not naturally regulate. We are not born with the skill of emotional regulation. As Stephanie says, it is caught, not taught. It doesn't come naturally. You can't just tell your kid what to do all the time. You can teach them skills and things, but for the most part, you calming your nervous system will help their nervous system calm. Once you are calm, you can connect with them and use those lax skills that we are going to be talking about through this entire series. Those lax skills will help them calm. Sit and just breathe with them for a few seconds. They may be nervous or scared about what you're going to say, what you're going to do. So we don't want it to be an anxious buildup of breathing, but just that calmness of being with them is so, so important to help them relax. Our family recently became horse owners. I'll show you a picture of our horse, Rocky. We he was a rescue, and so he can be a little spooky, which in the horse world it doesn't mean spooky, but in a horse world it means scared of things easily. And so one of the things that we're learning to do is helping his nervous system relax and helping him to be okay in new and unfamiliar situations. And one of the main ways we do that is make sure we're okay. If I'm regulated when I'm with him, it's easier for him to regulate. And you can kind of tell when a horse is alert and their ears are up and their head is high and they're kind of seeing what's around them. They're very alert, a little bit dysregulated, if I can use that term. As I talk calmly and I make sure my body is calm and I'm petting him, just being near him as much as he will allow. You can see when a horse starts to regulate, their head starts to drop, their ears relax a little bit, and then sometimes they'll do like a chewing with their mouth, and that kind of signals that, okay, they are regulating, they are relaxing. And that is an amazing skill. That's one reason why equine therapy or some form of equine assisted services can be really useful for trauma survivors because it can actually help teach things like emotional regulation and connection. Super, super valuable. In fact, just as a little interjection there, I'll put a link for a website or a page on our Trauma Healing Center website that lists a few equine therapy places. If you're local, you can try them out. If you're not local, you can maybe just look into them and see if there's something similar in your area. So what we want to do is be able to teach our kids to do that. So when we come into the conversation with them, we're regulated. We're using our lax skills, we're listening well, we're tuning, we're being very kind to them. We are helping them regulate. And as they regulate, they're able to do really important things. They're able to identify their emotions better. One way that we help our emotions release from our body is to be able to identify them and say, this is what I was feeling. And then not just this is what I was feeling, but this is why it makes sense. Okay, so I was feeling really scared, but it made sense to feel scared because that other kid was really scary. What was happening was really scary. So the feeling and the situation now makes sense. And once we make sense of things, it's easier for our brain and our body to kind of let go of it. And that's what we have to work towards. One of the quotes that I like from Stephanie's book, very, very short, but really impactful when we're working with really any person, any human, but we're specifically talking about our kids, our teenagers. She says, dysregulation is not a discipline issue. I'm going to say that again. Dysregulation is not a discipline issue. So when your child is not regulated, when they're feeling very anxious and maybe they're angry and they're being sarcastic or disrespectful, it's not necessarily a discipline issue if they're just dysregulated. We need to help them get back to their true self where they can think and be like, oh my gosh, I would never say that to you, Mom. I'm so sorry. Get back to that regulated place. That's the skill they need to learn. If they're shut down, they're ignoring you, they're going in the other room, they're just crying and unable to connect externally. That's that down here, that really dysregulated in the low zone. We need to help them get back up here and regulate it. We do that through the lax skills, through breathing, through making sure we are regulated before we interact with them. If you want more details on how to self-regulate, how to co-regulate, and how to teach that regulation to your kids, I encourage you to get this book. Remember, we've got the bundle of the 2 books in the handout available at our shop on traumahealingcenter.com, traumahealingcenterkc.com. I'll put the link in the description. You can get all of those there. And I want you to understand this concept because as we roll into this guide, we're going to be talking about regulation, emotional regulation. We're going to be talking about lax skills. We're going to be talking about being able to get to the reasoning part of our brain. So I'm going to put one other note here for those of you that are maybe adults and you're dealing with dissociation from childhood trauma. This whole series is more geared towards parents of kids with trauma. However, you may be able to glean some really useful tools for your healing journey throughout this video and or this whole series. So what I encourage you to do is watch it. If you get triggered, you can stop watching it. That's always the rule here at our channel, but see if maybe there's some things that you can pick up on that might be helpful for you and even healing as an adult. We have a lot of videos on trauma coping systems, which is the system that develops in some children who experience trauma. Not every child who experiences trauma grows up to have a trauma coping system, but some do. You will hear that term throughout this series as well. You can check out one of our other videos if you want to know more about that. But I encourage you, if you're a parent and you have a child and a teen with trauma, don't dig too deep into trauma coping system until you get through this series. And that way you have kind of a good foundation. You don't get information overload, because there's going to be a lot that we're going to be going through as it is. So get the books, read the information. Remember, kindness is the heart and the attitude that we always want to approach our kids with. They've been through a lot, doesn't make sense to them. One of our jobs as parents is to help things make sense. I know that's hard, because even me saying that, I'm certain there are some people that are like, wow, this doesn't even make sense to me. It's like, that's okay. You guys can work through these things together. Parent, child, take your time with it. We are going to be getting ready to come into the actual guide soon. Each of our lessons will come out on Wednesday, and then we'll have a few bonus lessons like this one, which is some extra information that may be helpful sprinkled throughout the series. So don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you will know when our next video comes out. And until then, continue to trust the Lord. He's got you, He's got your kids. He is right there, ready to walk you through this journey. Thanks for watching.